now we are working on the listing size, on the property size, on the transaction size, and I'm getting kind of confusing because we got a property, we got a listing, we got a transaction. We usually, my wife, she usually works with all the listings, so we get all the listings together, put them together. And I work with the buyers, so I really don't have a listing, but I do have a transaction, so I can enter the information on the transaction and bring the information. But you have a property, and when we enter the property information first, and then go to the listing, and then goes to the transaction. I guess it's like at the period of time, right? And
correct.
Let's see, we're working with the builder. He has five new homes. So we enter the property owner, but when we close actually close the whole deal, how do we move the if you got a listing or who's gonna be the owner? And I'm like, okay, now I'm gonna get it all confused.
Right. Okay. So go to the properties tab on this property coding. Thank you. So in the properties area, we do have the section here for owners, and this is considered kind of like the current owner. Who is it that currently owns this?
Okay.
There is a process that we are finishing up right now to handle kind of the closing process of everything once it closes, so that it will take the owners, the buyers of that property and transfer them into the owner. So it would remove whoever the owners are in this list and take the buyer information. There's like several things in the closing process that happens. Some of the things are, the documents that you've got, the links, the transactional information, stuff like that. A lot of agents have to submit that information to their broker, and you guys are your broker, so it may be a little bit different, but taking all that and making a historical package, a zipped up package of things is what I'm working on, so that whenever you go through the closing process, an action inside of a routine will say, okay, it's time to close this account out. We've gone through the closing process or whatever. Now let's move over the things that we need to move over. So it will take the buyer information, it will take that, put it into the owners, remove the owners, put the buyers in there, and then at that point you've got that ability to see who owns it. There is another tab that I'm working on that will show all the properties inside of a contact record of all the properties that are owned by that person. So whenever it switches, then that property entity, what's showing on the screen right now, will physically go and be moved to somebody else. Okay. Mm-hmm. They are still linked as sellers from the listing side, so you could still get to that information. If you needed historical information or whatever, you'd be able to go into the seller side, go into the listing party members side, and still be able to access that. We will probably create, in addition to the property tab itself of what they currently own, we'll probably create a party member thing, so you can go to an individual contact record and see what they were a party member to. Was it a listing? Was it a transaction? Were they the listing agent, the buyer's agent? Were they the title company or whatever for each of the different properties? So it would list all the properties. I don't have that done yet, but that's in the mixture of things. So whenever you think about properties, physically they move around to different owners, and that was the whole concept of, we create the property one time, and then each time we list it, if you go into the listing side, there's a drop down for the listing. So that little drop down there, each time you do a new listing, you create a new listing, it will list that in there. So you could go to that property, you could see over time each of the different listings that happen. In this case, there's only one, but you could go to historical past listings to find out who was the seller, who was the buyer, whatever. But the plan is, and it's getting close to having that done, is being able to say, okay, give me a list of properties that this person owns whenever I'm in their contact record, and then being able to also see what transactions were they part of, because they could be part of multiple transactions, especially if it's a builder. You know, you've got multiple properties that they currently own, and at some point they sell that. They don't own that anymore, but they're still party members because they're the builder. So you'd go to the party member section and be able to see all the properties that they were party members of. Does that make sense?
Yes. So on the transaction, we can do the party members, the listing of the owner or the builder. The builder, and the owner is going to be like whoever current own the property.
They would be the buyer.
Would be the buyer.
So the buyer, technically they bought it, so they, at that point, they would be the owner once it happens, but they're on the buyer side of that party member.
So on the property tab, it's going to be like actually owns the property.
Who currently owns it? Correct.
The current. Let's say I got a new listing. I got somebody who's a prospect who owns a particular property. So we enter the information here, and then we list it, and then it gets to a transaction, and then when we close it, and it removes the whoever. So we got to go back and remove the owner's information right now.
Right now, you do have to go in there and manually remove it. I'll bump that piece up. I've been working on, we talked about last week, we talked about the offer. What happens whenever you get an offer and you accept that offer, it creates the transaction for you. I need to do the similar type of thing. Once a transaction closes, what are all the things that need to happen? And that for some people is different. And I'm taking my time on kind of the design of that so that it'll be configurable enough that you guys can do additional things with it. But basically what that's going to do is it's going to allow whoever the buyer is will replace the owners in that property. It will create copies of closing information. It'll give closing statements. There's a whole closing tab of information for your gross commission, your net commission. How do you calculate that net commission? And unfortunately, that is so different for everybody because of whether or not they've got franchise fees or not. They've got so there's a whole calculation piece that we're putting together on that as well.
Okay, so this is when actually you get a prospect, a listing. There's gonna put the house like maybe on the market, and it gets to a listing, and it goes to a transaction, and then we get it closed. But let's see you got a buyer, and now we get into a transaction because we don't have a property, and now we got the property. So how do you start from there? Let's see. You got I'm showing houses to a client, and now they decide to go to get a contract, an offer, submit an offer. We get it accepted, and now we do a transaction. So we create, so from the beginning we create a transaction, so we don't have to worry about property. We only work with the transaction. Are you following me? With the buyer.
I think I missed you somewhere there, but I mean, from the listing side, once you've got a listing, then you can go into the offers side.
Forget about the listing. I'm working with the buyer.
You're working with the buyers. Okay, so with the buyer, then you're just going to, if you've got a buyer, if it's not your listing, then you'll just put in the property address of what they're buying, and then you'll start a transaction on that, because you don't know all the listing information, and you may not, I mean, you may or may not know all the property stuff. Soon, I've been working with our AI server to be able to bring in some of that property information through a listing or an MLS listing form, or Zillow, or some of the others. So it'll kind of smart fill in the information. That's not there yet, but it's getting close.